Grand Admiral Theron Rax stood motionless on the command bridge of the Imperial flagship Indomitable, his weathered Krillian features illuminated by the blue glow of tactical displays. 10,000 years of unquestioned dominance had made the unified KRYLL Empire complacent, even arrogant, but something in Rax's gut told him that was about to change. "Status report," he commanded, voice steady despite the unease creeping through him. The Indomitable patrolled the outer reaches of known space, near the forbidden Xylo's unexplored region. It was supposed to be a routine mission, a show of force to remind any potential threats that the Empire's reach extended even to these distant corners. Lieutenant Anya Sharma, a young sensor officer, frowned at her console. Her fingers danced across the interface, recalibrating and confirming readings that shouldn't exist. "Admiral," she said, voice taut with confusion, "there's an object. It's not in any records, and it's moving fast." She looked up, dark eyes wide. 3 times faster than our fastest warships. Rax strode to her station, leaning over to examine the anomaly himself. The unidentified void object appeared as merely a blip on their long-range sensors, but it was unmistakably there, and moving with impossible speed. "Full sensor sweep," he ordered. "All bands, all frequencies. I want to know what we're dealing with." The bridge crew hurried to comply, the atmosphere thick with tension. Security Chief Volkov, a career military Krillian with a perpetual scowl, moved to stand beside Rax. "We should ready weapons, Admiral," he muttered. "Anything unknown is a potential threat. Let's not fire the first shot at something we don't understand," Rax countered, eyes fixed on the main view screen. "For all we know, it could be a natural phenomenon." "Natural phenomena don't change course," Sharma interjected, alarm evident in her voice. "The UVO has altered trajectory. It's heading directly toward us." Red alert klaxons blared across the Indomitable as the ship's AI detected the potential threat. Crew members rushed to battle stations, and shield generators hummed to life. "Time to intercept," Rax demanded. "At current speed, for minutes," Sharma replied. Volkov stepped closer. "Admiral, we must take preemptive action, a targeted barrage, and risk starting a war with an unknown entity." Rax cut him off. "We represent the Empire, Volkov. We act with precision, not panic." The minutes passed with excruciating slowness, every eye on the bridge fixed on the approaching object. Then, without warning, the UVO halted at a distance just within weapons range. "It stopped, sir," Sharma reported, confusion evident in her voice. Communications Officer Kale worked frantically at his station. "Admiral, we're receiving some kind of signal. It's unlike anything in our databases. I can't decipher it with standard protocols." "Keep trying," Rax ordered, "and maintain shields at maximum." The tension on the bridge ratcheted higher as a smaller object detached from the UVO and began moving toward the Indomitable. "Targeting systems locked," Volkov announced, hand hovering over the weapons console. "Hold fire," Rax commanded, "but keep weapons hot and shields at maximum." The smaller craft approached with precision, adjusting its course and configuration until it perfectly aligned with one of the Indomitable's external docking ports, an action that demonstrated an alarming understanding of Krillian technology. Rax felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him. 10,000 years of Krillian dominance, and now this moment of uncertainty. His decision here could shape the Empire's future. "Sir," Volkov protested, "allowing unknown entities to dock is against Imperial protocol. This could be an invasion force. If they wanted to attack us, they could have done so already," Rax replied. "They've demonstrated technology far beyond ours." He straightened his uniform. "Sometimes protocol must bow to wisdom, Volkov. Prepare a security team at the docking port. Non-lethal measures only, unless I give the command." Minutes later, Rax stood before the docking port, flanked by armed guards. The airlock cycled open, revealing nothing, just empty space. The silence stretched, taut and expectant. Then, a figure stepped forward from the shadows. A humanoid being in a form-fitting silver suit stood in the airlock doorway. Feminine in appearance, She had iridescent skin and eyes that seemed to shift colors with each blink. She raised an empty hand in what appeared to be a universal gesture of peace. "I am Ambassador Lyra of the Free Worlds Alliance," she announced in perfect Krillian. "We come with peaceful intentions, seeking cultural and knowledge exchange." The security team tensed, weapons raised slightly. Rax gestured for them to stand down. "I am Grand Admiral Theron Rax of a unified KRYLL Empire," he replied cautiously. "I must inform you that we have no record of any Free Worlds Alliance in our databases, which span 10 millennia of galactic history." Lyra smiled, a gesture both warm and enigmatic. "That is because we have chosen not to be known until now." She held out a small, crystalline device. "This is a universal translation device. It will facilitate our communication better than my limited knowledge of your language." Rax hesitated before accepting the device. "How is it that you speak our language at all?" "We have been observing the KRYLL Empire from a distance for quite some time," Lyra replied. "Learning and understanding is our way." This revelation sent a chill through Rax. An advanced civilization had been watching them, completely undetected. The implications were staggering. "I would like to invite you to the bridge," Rax said after a moment of consideration. "There are many questions that need answering." As they walked through the corridors of the Indomitable, Rax noticed how crew members stared at Lyra with a mixture of fascination and apprehension. Volkov walked stiffly beside them, hand never straying far from his sidearm. On the bridge, Lyra stood before the command staff and activated a holographic display from a device on her wrist. Three-dimensional images of diverse worlds, species, and technologies far beyond Krillian understanding materialized in the air. "The Free Worlds Alliance is a cooperative of species and civilizations," she explained. "We prioritize individual freedom and collaboration rather than conquest. Our territories exist in regions your empire has not yet explored, and some in dimensional spaces your science has not yet discovered." "Impossible," one of the science officers muttered. Lyra smiled patiently. "Many things seem impossible until they are demonstrated." A priority communication alert interrupted the meeting. Emperor Krillos, for himself, appeared on the main view screen, his heavily adorned figure projecting authority even through the transmission. "Admiral Rax." The Emperor's voice was cold and measured. "We have detected anomalous readings near your position. Report immediately." Rax explained the situation as succinctly as possible. The Emperor's expression remained impassive, but his eyes narrowed slightly at the mention of superior technology. "Keep the delegation contained on your vessel," he ordered. "Additional fleets are being dispatched to your location. Await further instructions." The transmission ended abruptly. Lyra, who had observed the exchange without comment, turned to Rax with a knowing look. "Every action has consequences, Admiral. Your Emperor is preparing for confrontation rather than conversation." "How could you possibly know?" Volkov began. A deafening alarm cut him off. The chief engineer's panicked voice came over the comm system. "Bridge. The main reactor is experiencing a cascade failure. Systems aren't responding to override commands." Chaos erupted on the bridge. A reactor breach would destroy the Indomitable and everyone aboard. "Evacuation protocols," Rax commanded, though he knew most crew wouldn't reach escape pods in time. "Perhaps we can help," Lyra said calmly. She made a subtle gesture, and another figure materialized beside her, seemingly out of nowhere. A tall, mechanical-looking being that hadn't been present moments before. "This is Jax, our engineering specialist," Lyra explained. "With your permission?" Desperation overriding caution, Rax nodded. Lyra and Jax were escorted to engineering at a run. There, they found Krillian engineers working frantically to contain the cascading reaction. Jax approached the reactor controls and produced tools that seemed to phase between solid matter and energy. Working with astonishing speed, the Alliance engineer bypassed failing systems, reconfigured power distribution, and stabilized the reactor, all in mere minutes. As the danger readings fell back to normal, a stunned silence fell over engineering. Even Volkov couldn't hide his amazement. "We believe in mutual assistance," Lyra said simply. Later, in his private quarters, Rax composed his report to Emperor Krylos IV. He described the Alliance's technological capabilities, their peaceful approach, and the reactor incident. He strongly recommended diplomatic engagement rather than confrontation. The Emperor's response came quickly. The Alliance delegation was to be invited to Kar-Wyl Prime for formal negotiations. But encrypted within the message were additional orders. Prepare for all scenarios, including war. When Rax extended the invitation, Lyra accepted with a mysterious smile. We would be honored to visit the heart of your empire. The UVO, now identified as the Stardust Wanderer, and the Indomitable prepared for the hyperspace jump to the center of the empire. As the stars stretched into lines around them, Rax couldn't shake the feeling that the empire was heading toward a crossroads from which there would be no return. Kar-Wyl Prime loomed ahead, a technological marvel spanning half a continent, a planet-sized city of towering spires and massive military installations. The royal palace dominated the central district, a monument to the emperor's absolute authority. The Alliance delegation, now expanded to include several specialists in diplomacy and science, descended to the surface alongside Admiral Rax. The reception was ostentatious, with military precision rather than warmth, a calculated display of Krillian might. Emperor Krylos IV received them in the Grand Hall, seated upon the Eternity Throne. Flanked by his High Council, he cut an imposing figure, his ancient Krillian features set in stone-like formality. Welcome to Kar-Wyl Prime. The Emperor's voice echoed through the vast chamber. We are curious about this alliance that has remained hidden from the greatest civilization in galactic history. Perhaps you can explain your intrusion into our territory and your true intentions. Lyra stepped forward, unfazed by the Emperor's thinly veiled hostility. Your Majesty, we have not intruded. We have introduced ourselves. The universe is vast, and no single power can claim dominion over all of it. The negotiations that followed were tense. The Alliance proposed trade agreements, cultural and scientific exchanges, and peaceful coexistence. The Empire demanded military technology, sharing and acceptance of monitoring by Imperial forces for mutual security. We cannot accept oversight that compromises our sovereignty, Lyra stated firmly. Nor will we share technologies that could be weaponized against others. With diplomatic precision, she highlighted vulnerabilities in the Empire's defense systems and social structure. Information the Alliance had gathered during their observation period. It was not a threat, but a demonstration that the Alliance already understood the Empire better than the Empire understood them. Grand Marshal Kortar, the leader of the military hardliners on the High Council, leaned toward the Emperor. These outsiders speak of peace while demonstrating they've been spying on us, he said loudly enough for all to hear. They represent an existential threat that must be contained or neutralized. Rax, standing to the side, stepped forward. With respect, Your Majesty, we've seen evidence of their technological superiority. They've had ample opportunity to harm us, yet have shown only peaceful intentions. Caution is warranted, but hostility would be unwise. The Emperor's cold gaze shifted between Rax and Kortar. Perhaps our visitors would like to see the glory of our empire firsthand, he suggested. A tour of our military and industrial facilities would be educational for them. The invitation was clearly an attempt to intimidate and gather intelligence on the Alliance representatives. As they toured military bases and industrial complexes, Krillian officials boasted of the Empire's might, its undefeated fleets, its planet-destroying capabilities. The Alliance specialists observed everything with polite interest, while discreetly scanning and collecting massive amounts of data using microscopic devices undetectable to Krillian security. The tour culminated in a demonstration of force by the Imperial Royal Fleet. Capital ships performed precision maneuvers, weapon systems conducted live-fire exercises, and fighter squadrons executed complex attack patterns. In a surprise addition to the program, the Stardust Wanderer was invited to participate in a simulated combat exercise. The Alliance vessel, smoothly evaded every simulated attack from the Imperial ships. Then, with surgical precision, it temporarily disabled the weapons systems of several Imperial warships using targeted electromagnetic pulses that caused no permanent damage, a controlled demonstration of capability that sent shockwaves through the Imperial command. That evening, the Emperor hosted a state banquet for the Alliance delegation. The atmosphere was charged with tension beneath the veneer of diplomatic courtesy. Meanwhile, Grand Marshal Cortar, with the Emperor's tacit approval, had dispatched an elite commando team to infiltrate the Stardust Wanderer while the Alliance delegation was occupied at the banquet. Their mission: secure Alliance technology or capture hostages for leverage. The team easily bypassed the exterior defenses of the outpost where the Alliance ship was docked, their confidence bolstered by the apparent lack of security. But upon entering the vessel, they encountered an advanced AI defense system unlike anything in the Empire. Non-lethal energy traps activated, immobilization fields deployed, and small security drones systematically incapacitated the entire team within minutes. Not a single shot was fired, yet the elite Imperial commandos were rendered completely helpless. At the banquet, Lyra received a discreet notification on her personal device. Her expression remained serene, but her eyes hardened slightly. She continued her conversation with a High Council member without missing a beat. Later, as the Emperor was giving a speech about mutual respect between great powers, Lyra arose from her seat. The room fell silent. "Your Majesty," she said, her voice calm but carrying an edge of steel, "I regret to inform you of an unfortunate security incident involving our vessel." With a gesture, she projected images of the captured Imperial commandos onto the large screens intended for the Emperor's propaganda videos. The entire hall could see the Empire's elite forces immobilized and restrained. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the assembly. Grand Marshal Cortar blanched. Emperor Krillo's IV's face contorted with barely contained fury and humiliation. "This unprovoked action is unacceptable," Lyra continued, her tone remaining diplomatic but firm. "The Free World Alliance has no desire for escalation, but we require a formal apology and absolute assurances of our security. Otherwise, we will depart immediately, and the Alliance will reconsider all relations with the KRYLL Empire." The Emperor, faced with irrefutable evidence and the prospect of complete embarrassment before his court, not to mention the clear technological gap between the powers, had no choice. He publicly apologized for the unauthorized action and publicly reprimanded Cortar. Security around the Alliance delegation was tightened, but now as protection rather than surveillance. When negotiations resumed the next day, the dynamics had shifted entirely. The Empire had lost its perceived upper hand, and the Alliance had proven they were not to be intimidated or deceived. Admiral Rax observed the proceedings with mixed emotions. Relief that open conflict had been avoided, but concern for what the future might hold for the Empire he had served his entire life. In the weeks following the diplomatic incident, a suffocating tension blanketed KRYLL Prime. Emperor Krillos IV and the High Council continued negotiations with the Alliance, but internal fractures were beginning to appear in the Empire's monolithic structure. Information about the Alliance's technological superiority and the Empire's humiliating failure had leaked beyond the elite circles, sparking discontent and questioning among ordinary citizens and lower-ranking military personnel who had long endured harsh rule. In the latest round of negotiations, Ambassador Lyra introduced concepts entirely alien to the Empire: transparent governance, individual freedoms, and decentralized power structures. These ideas were regarded as dangerous by the Imperial leadership, but resonated with many who heard them. Admiral Rax, profoundly affected by what he had witnessed, began gathering like-minded officers and officials. Their quiet conversations centered on the possibility of internal reforms that might allow the Empire to evolve rather than eventually collapse under its own rigidity. "The Alliance has shown us not just technological advancement," Rax told his confidants during a secure meeting, "but a different way of existing. Perhaps there is strength in adaptation rather than mere preservation. The conservative faction, though weakened after Cortar's disgrace, worked to undermine the negotiations and spread misinformation about the alliance, claiming they were attempting a soft invasion of the empire through cultural corruption. Meanwhile, the alliance had established unofficial channels of communication throughout the empire. Through microscopic devices planted during their tours and visits, they began sharing information about progressive social models and beneficial civilian technologies with reform groups and ordinary citizens on several colonial planets where discontent was simmering. Small, peaceful demonstrations demanding reforms and greater transparency began to emerge on the periphery of the empire. Though quickly suppressed, they represented the first cracks in the facade of absolute control. Your emperor fears change more than he fears external threats, Lyra observed to Rax during a private conversation. But change is the one constant in the universe. Those who resist it are eventually swept away by it. Emperor Krillos IV, feeling his power challenged from both outside and within, decided to take harsh action. He ordered the arrest of several key figures in Rax's reform movement and publicly denounced them as traitors influenced by foreign ideologies. Simultaneously, he issued an ultimatum to the alliance: either accept the empire's terms, including restrictions on their activities and sharing of military technology, or leave and face a complete isolation policy from the empire, which would prepare for a protracted Cold War, if necessary. Lyra stood unflinching before the High Council as the ultimatum was delivered. Rather than immediately departing, she activated a previously established secret communication network that reached every corner of the empire. Her message was broadcast directly to the entire imperial population. People of the KRYLL Empire, I speak to you not as an adversary, but as a potential friend. The Free World Alliance has no intention of invasion or overthrow, only of sharing a better future where all voices are heard. We offer dialogue and mutual understanding, not subjugation. Be wary of those who would keep you isolated and afraid, for they fear what you might become if given true freedom. The message, though the Empire attempted to block it, spread like wildfire. Many Krillians, especially the younger generations and those on distant worlds, began questioning the imperial narrative. Larger protests erupted across multiple planets. Some local military units refused orders to suppress them. Rax, though under close surveillance, managed to contact his allies, preparing for an inevitable confrontation with the Emperor's hardline faction. KRYLL Prime descended into a state of extreme tension. The Emperor strengthened loyal forces around the palace. The Stardust Wanderer remained in orbit, a silent but powerful observer. The KRYLL Empire teetered on the edge of chaos. Multiple planetary systems had declared independence from KRYLL Prime. Small skirmishes erupted between loyalist forces and military units supporting reform. Admiral Rax had publicly sided with the reform movement, calling for the Emperor to step down and for an all-empire conference to determine the future. Emperor Krillos IV, barricaded in his palace, ordered his most loyal units, including the Imperial Guard fleet, to prepare for a full-scale assault to crush the rebellion and restore order, even if it meant civil war. Ambassador Lyra and the Alliance declared neutrality in the Empire's internal affairs, but affirmed they would protect Alliance citizens and diplomatic missions. The Stardust Wanderer and several other Alliance vessels, which had arrived discreetly, formed a protective perimeter around a designated safe zone where negotiations between Krillian factions could take place. Rax and reform leaders worked to consolidate their forces and convince more military commanders to join them, emphasizing that their goal was to reform the Empire, not destroy it. We have served an idea of strength that has become our weakness, Rax told a gathering of fleet captains. True strength lies in adaptability, in the well-being of our people, not in blind obedience to outdated structures. Alliance experts secretly provided the reform faction with secure communication technologies, non-lethal defense tactics, and intelligence on the Loyalist plans. A tense standoff developed in orbit around KRYLL Prime between the Imperial Guard fleet and ships commanded by Rax. Neither side wanted to fire the first shot at their own countrymen. News of brutality by some loyalist commanders in suppressing peaceful protests on distant planets further increased support for the reform movement. The Imperial Guard fleet, following the Emperor's orders, finally opened fire on Rax's ships. A brief but fierce space battle erupted above KRYLL Prime. Just as Rax's forces were beginning to be overwhelmed, an unexpected event occurred. Most vessels in the Imperial Guard fleet simultaneously ceased fire and broadcast messages supporting Rax's call for peaceful reform. Their captains had secretly communicated with each other, recognizing that the Emperor was driving the Empire towards self-destruction. Emperor Krillos IV, watching this mass betrayal from screens in his bunker, fell into a rage of despair. The battle ended quickly. The remaining loyal commanders either surrendered or were disabled. Rax ordered no pursuit and called for reconciliation. The Emperor was taken into custody by his own guards, who refused to follow orders that would lead to more Krillian deaths. An interim Krillian council was established, including Rax, reform leaders, representatives from various planets, and even moderate members from the old regime. They announced the beginning of a process to create a new constitution and a more democratic form of governance. Lyra and the Alliance delegation were invited to serve as observers and advisors, if requested, for the transition process. The Alliance offered humanitarian and technical assistance for reconstruction. As the sun set on a changed KRYLL Prime, Rax and Lyra stood on the observation deck of the Stardust Wanderer, looking down at the planet below. "I never imagined being part of such momentous change," Rax admitted. "The path ahead is uncertain. Dawn always comes after the longest night," Lyra replied with a smile. "The Alliance believes in your potential." A new KRYLL was beginning to take shape, freer, more outward-looking, though the road ahead would hold many challenges. The change, though painful, had become possible, and the appearance of a ship not in any records had become the catalyst for a new era. In the grand tapestry of galactic history, this moment would be remembered as the beginning of transformation, when an ancient empire learned that true strength comes not from rigid power, but from the ability to grow and adapt. As stars glittered in the void beyond the viewport, both Rax and Lyra knew that this was not an ending, but a beginning. The Free Worlds Alliance and the reformed KRYLL would face the future together, as partners in a universe far more vast and wondrous than either had fully understood before their paths crossed. "What happens now?" Rax asked, looking at the world below, where celebrations and solemn ceremonies were both taking place. "Now," Lyra said, "you build something better, and we'll be here to help if you ask." The ship that wasn't in any records had changed everything. And the universe, infinite in its possibilities, continued to unfold.